With different styles of hats, sometimes you're presented unique issues particular to that style. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you some tips for pressing foam trucker caps and structured snapbacks. Let's get started. So when working with foam trucker caps, you're gonna notice that the foam on the crown is very heat sensitive. Now, that heat sensitivity does present its own issues. So one of the things you can do to kind of mitigate that is use a cap press with a rounded platen. That's gonna be something like the HPN Signature Series Auto Open Cap Press, the Basic Press, or the Stahl's Hotronix cap presses. Not only are you gonna need a cap press with a rounded edge on the platen, you're also gonna wanna use light pressure. The great thing about working with caps is that they don't go through the same laundry cycle as your t-shirts. As a result, you don't really need to mash the vinyl or mash your product like in there. You don't need heavy pressure. Usually a nice medium pressure or even a light pressure will do, especially when it comes to things like foam trucker caps. So one trick that I like to use, not just for my foam trucker caps, but for all the hats that I create, is I'll add some wings to my transfer. And what I mean by that is I'm gonna get 2 pieces of heat tape, put one on each side of my transfer, and now I can hold on to that heat tape and use that to find the right position for my transfer on the crown of my cap. And then once it's ready, you use that heat tape to secure the transfer in place. One thing you'll notice is that when you're placing transfers on your cap, especially if they don't have an adhesive carrier sheet, is that the curve of the hat is gonna cause your flat transfer to sit very loosely, and it's easy for you to lose position on there. So not only will these wings help you center it, it's also gonna help keep the transfer in place while it's being heat pressed. Now again, this foam material is very heat sensitive, so sometimes you may find that there's gonna be a slight imprint of the transfer or even the heat tape in that foam. All you need to do is get some parchment paper or pro-grade non-stick sheet, cover the foam trucker and repress it for a few seconds, and that should do wonders in helping to iron out those imprint marks. Now the last tip I have for you regarding foam truckers is that you don't want to remove it from your cap press immediately after pressing. You're going to want to let it sit and cool for at least 30 to 60 seconds, and here's why. When you load the foam trucker onto the cap press, it's going to get stretched slightly over the bottom platen. Now, when your hat is warm, it's going to expand a little bit. When it's cool, it's going to shrink just a little bit. Now here's the problem. When you pull a stretched hat that's warm, take it off your cap press, it's gonna shrink back a little bit, but then it's gonna cool. Now, when it cools in the shrunken position, it's going to wrinkle. So if you've noticed that your foam truckers are getting a weird wrinkly texture after you heat press them, it's very likely that you're removing the cap too soon from your cap press. All you gotta do to fix that problem is let the cap sit on the press, again, for about 30 to 60 seconds before removing it. Now that's gonna bring us to structured caps. Now structured caps are gonna bring their own unique issue to most heat presses, and that is the curve of the crown usually does not match the curve of your heat press. And this is because different hat manufacturers use different curves for the crown of their hats. There's no universal hat size, there's no universal crown shape or anything like that. So because of that, it's virtually impossible to have a heat press that will accommodate every last single curve. So most heat presses are manufactured in a way to be one size fits most. That being said, there are gonna be the hats that don't match. So what do you do about this? Well, if you've tried to press the cap anyways, you've probably found an issue where you were getting pinch creases on the crown. And that's because there's a gap between the cap and the press. So how do you mitigate this? All you do is pad the lower platen. Now there are a few different ways to do this. What I like to do is use a little bit of heat foam. I love heat foam, and so I always have some on hand. So you can cut a few different strips of heat foam. This is something that's gonna require a little trial and error depending on your press and your cap. So give yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, but this is a great way to be able to customize any structured cap. So you're gonna cut a few pieces of the heat foam, and with some heat tape, you're gonna fix them in place until you've filled in the gap on your cap. And then once that gap has been filled in, now you can heat press your structured caps safely, easily, and without those pinch creases. Now, one last little bonus tip when pressing hats is to remember this: if it fits, it can be pressed, usually. So what do I mean by that? It means you could usually press the temple, you could press the area over the snap, and you can even press the top or bottom of the bill as long as you can put it on your heat press. So that's something that's really fun to experiment with. Try positioning your cap in different sections on your cap press. Maybe you could turn it upside down, put it in your regular full-size heat press to press the bottom of the bill. If you have some hat pressing tips that you want to share, please put them in the comments below. We'd love to see them, and I'm sure there's somebody else out there who could use that knowledge as well. For any questions about anything we've talked about here, you can visit us at heatpressnation.com.